Now, President Biden has unveiled the first ever executive order on artificial intelligence. The order creates, among other new rules, and I'm going to take a breath here, safety and security standards, fraud protection, military and intelligence standards, privacy protections, and research and technology coordination, just to name some. Top White House officials say it's the most significant action on AI taken by any government. The move comes as world leaders race to address the risks posed by the quickly evolving technology. Attorney Justin Daniels is a data privacy advisor and the author of the book Data Reimagined. Thank you so much for joining me. And an official told CNBC, quote, AI policy is like running into a decathlon, and there's 10 different events here. So Justin, before we dive into the details, how does the sheer scope of this sit with you? Is it too much to tackle all at once, or is it necessary?
I think that this Biden administration rule or executive order is really helpful, because if nothing else, it continues to create the narrative around we really need to be thinking about artificial intelligence. Where it's a little bit limited is it really can only apply to the federal government, which is, of course, a big purchaser of goods from big tech companies, but it doesn't really apply to the typical kinds of companies that you and I might deal with who aren't in the federal government.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we had a graphic that shows the different areas that the Biden administration is focusing on. I'm curious specifically which line items stand out to you the most and why, as you say that this is something that is good, but of course has its limits. Is there a particular area, here it is on our screen, that really sticks out to you?
Well, I think the safety standards are important, as well as privacy, cybersecurity as well, because what people need to realize is artificial intelligence will really transform the way that we relate to each other. How do you know that the person you're talking to right now is not a deep fake and it's really Justin Daniels? And regulations are really what's going to be necessary to try to put up the appropriate guardrails so that nothing else as a society, we have a conversation about what does this technology mean about understanding how we relate to each other, how we put the facts out there, how we make sure that this is safe and within societal norms.
I mean, let me pull a thread on that point there, because I was going to ask you, for people that are looking at this going, okay, an executive order, it's long. How does this affect me on the day-to-day? Can you maybe paint a picture of how folks like you and me would be affected here by this?
Well, I think it has to do with the fact that obviously we all interact with the federal government. We're all taxpayers. So this may impact if the government is going to roll out new types of AI, from your taxes to how you interact with state parks and federal parks. To me, as consumers, it could be helpful there. But the other thing to consider is, well, the federal government is a treasure trove of data. And so where is the AI collecting all of this data? Because I don't know that the act really addresses one of the primary issues, which is all of the data that big tech collects that they want to use for their own AI. How does that impact the AI then they're trying to sell to the government?
Yeah, I want to bring up this whole watermark on AI content, that piece to this. Will that really solve, as you mentioned, the deep fake issues, not being able to know if it's a video, a deep fake, or an actual person? And how will this watermark portion be enforced?
Well, that'll be interesting to see how that will happen, because an executive order isn't the same as congressional legislation. And so while a watermark that might be helpful, it's not to say that someone who's creating a deep fake couldn't go and make the watermark look exactly like the government has it. So to me, AI is really more of a holistic approach from a risk standpoint of understanding what data is it collecting? How did it get the right to do that? Have we tested the algorithm to make sure it's getting the kinds of results that are consistent with its programming? So to me, it's really looking at it from cradle to grave around how AI is being deployed in society around guardrails that make sense from ethics and other considerations.
In the past, and you mentioned this, we've seen these non-binding agreements that a number of tech companies agreed to, but even they themselves at the time said it wasn't enough. And now you've got this executive order. And as you mentioned, it's not congressional, but how do you anticipate tech players will react to this?
Well, from what I'm seeing, I think the tech players realize regulation is coming, so they want to be part of it to help shape it. And so the question is what is that shaping going to look like? Is it going to be done so that they can have markets and they can have profits, or is it going to be done more so that we're protecting society? Because a great example is look what happened with OpenAI and ChatGPT over in Europe. They have GDPR, the Comprehensive Privacy Law. So they were able to say, hey, wait a second, what about the data collection privacy practices? And ChatGPT had to take a bit of a powder in Italy to address those. In the United States, we don't have any kind of comprehensive privacy or cybersecurity regulation. And now AI wants to come into the mix from a congressional point of view. So I think this executive order is great by putting pressure and another stepping stone. And we have to address AI, but I don't know how that's going to happen in Congress when it takes 3 weeks to elect a speaker.
It's a fair point there. Technology moves faster at times, actually not at times, most of the time when it comes to our laws. And such a fair point on bringing up the global conversation happening around this. I was looking at Vice President Kamala Harris, who's going to be going to the UK's AI summit that's coming up as well. So data privacy expert Justin Daniels, hey, thank you for your analysis. Appreciate it.
Thank you.